Thank you. Yeah, we're now live, Chair.
Thank you very much, James. Welcome to this virtual Cabinet panel on the environment meeting that is being conducted with members and officers at various locations, communicating via audio, video and online. There is also the opportunity for the public and press to listen and view proceedings. We also have contributors from various organisations with us here to provide feedback. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to take a roll call to confirm that the required members, officers and participants can be heard. Robbie?
Thank you, Chair. So when your name is called, please indicate your attendance to confirm that you can hear us and that we can hear you. I'll start with members. Councillor Emma Fernandez.
Here. I can hear you all loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe Graziano.
Present and looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominic Griffiths. Okay, I'll come back to that. Councillor Caroline McDonald.
I'm here and I can hear you all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lisa Nash. We'll also come back to that one. And Councillor Claire Strong.
Good evening, everybody. I can hear you and I hope you can hear me.
Thank you very much. We can hear you perfectly. Officers, Ellie Hollingsworth.
Yes, present.
Thank you. Amber Smith-Harrell.
Hello, I'm here.
Thank you. Daisy Harris.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. And Georgina Chapman.
Present.
Thank you very much. And then speakers for tonight, we have Nick Dean.
Good evening. Can hear you all fine.
Thank you. Mark Miller. Another one I'll come back to. James Headley Hamilton.
Good evening. I can hear you all.
Thank you. And Reese Waterman.
Hi there. Yeah, I can hear you all.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And then on to members of the public, we have Diane Ketcher.
Good evening. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much. John Webb. If you could just indicate you can hear us, please, John, in some way, that'd be great. I think I see you there. So yeah, great. Brilliant. Sarah M. Okay, I'll come back to that one. Will Gray. Yeah, also can't hear.
Yes, it's Karen.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just on another Zoom.
No problem. Thank you. Sue Lyons.
She's here. I've seen her.
Yes, definitely here.
Yes. Okay, no problem. That's fine. That's all the public that I can see for the minute. I'll just go back to the ones that weren't called out. So Councillor Dominic Griffiths. Would you be able to just mute yourself, please, John? Thank you. And then Councillor Lisa Nash. Okay, I think that's everyone, but are there any other members, officers or public in attendance that I haven't called out? I think that's everyone, so I will now hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. I'm just going to quickly ask something. Not to worry. Okay, so apologies for absence. Now, we haven't been sent any formal apologies. Does anyone have any apologies on behalf of others? For example, Dominic, who's not here, or Lisa Nash? Okay. There have been no official apologies received. The minutes as of the 14th of January, I propose that we take as read and approve as a true record that the minutes of the meeting of the panel held on the 14th of January 2026. Can I have a seconder? They're all good, unless anyone has got any comments.
I'll second for you, Amy.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Okay, no other hands up with that. Okay, thank you very much. Right, I'm just going to whiz through this. Chair's announcements. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is recorded. The recordings will be available on both the Council's YouTube page as well as the Council's ModGov site. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. Members are reminded that this Council has declared both a climate emergency and an ecological emergency. These are serious decisions and mean that as these These are emergencies. All of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. The theme for this Cabinet panel meeting is sustainability in schools, and we are joined by speakers from schools around Hertfordshire to present on this topic at item 6 on the agenda. The final item on tonight's agenda is to consider suggestions of items for future meetings. Please could members and any public consider this throughout the meeting and provide any suggestions when discussions on that item takes place. I will then consider these alongside officers for inclusion at a future meeting of the panel. No other business has been notified. Okay. Now I'm going to jump to item 6 of the presentations and move the action tracker to the end. If that's so, I believe that was the plan, unless something's changed. Daisy and Robbie.
I don't believe. I'll leave that to Daisy and Amber to confirm.
Is my recollection wrong? I'm sorry.
I think we're going to stick with the order as it was, but I'll just check with Daisy.
I believe the same, if that's all right.
Okay, so we'll go straight to the council activity update and action tracker then. Yeah. Super,
Well,
thank
Chairman, I thought it's normally.
I'm not a man, Claire. I'm.
Oh, sorry.
So just
sorry.
a chair will be fine. Thank you.
Sorry. Old habit. I'm quite happy if you were wanting to listen to the presentations first, so that those that have come to the meeting can do their presentations, and then if they're not bound to stay till the bitter end, if it's a school night and they've got to go.
It was just because it was sorry, Claire, sorry, Councillor Strong. It was just because my recollection is obviously incorrect. So I'm quite happy to go in order, and it's going to be short because it's only been a little amount of time since the last meeting anyway. So we're kind of getting it out of the way so we can then focus entirely on it. My memory is coming back now. It's been a very long day. But no, thank you for that note though, Councillor Strong. Well, in that case, can I ask Ellie Hollingsworth to present the council activity update and action tracker, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, it should be quite short. So for the information note for this meeting, so we're just going to take you through some council activity updates, briefly on the sustainability strategy actions and a review of the action tracker. So obviously we've heard that we're going to be hearing from some schools. So the theme is sustainability in schools, but I'll leave the chair to introduce each school as and when they present. So first off, for some updates from the Hertfordshire and Climate Change Sustainability Partnership, the third round of Solar Together has closed, but we're still seeing some more installations. So we've had 73 installations across North Herts, totaling just over 700 panels. And yeah, continuing to see some installations from that, which is good to see. Next up is that the Hertfordshire County Council are expanding on the flood kit pilot scheme. So this started in 2024 across the year, and yeah, they're expanding it now to allow communities across Hertfordshire to sign up for a flood kit. And this is sort of for different areas that have recently experienced flooding or sort of are susceptible to flooding. And each flood kit has been tailored to meet the local risks and profile of the community, sort of picking from different equipment, from hydro sacks, high-vis jackets, puddle pumps, and sort of other things to help in the event of a flood. So the kits are to be placed in sort of a storage unit in a central area with public liability insurance. And yeah, the County Council are inviting other communities that have sort of experienced flooding that would benefit from a shared kit and also a flood plan to register their interest. So the link is on the information note, but I'll also pop it in the chat. Before I hand over for the next bits on the updates, just an update on the action tracker. So all of the actions have been completed, but as usual, we will update with the chair if there's anything that arises after the meeting. So those will be added sort of as and when, if there are any arising from this meeting. So I'll pass over to Daisy for the next updates.
Just before we move on, very quickly, Councillor Strong's got a hand up. Is that a question regarding what Ellie was just talking about, or is it a general question?
Yeah, I just wanted on the flooding. given that we have within North Hertfordshire, we've got one area that is deemed as a flood risk. I just wondered if there was just any update on that, if whether or not it's very critical at the moment, whether we're likely to see, with all the rain that's coming, whether we're likely to see a problem in the district.
I thought it was more than one, but Ellie, George, if you're able to clarify on that.
So I don't have an update on the actual sort of flooding risk as sort of today's weather as such. But in relation to the flood kits, 2 have been provided across North Herts. So 1 at Kimpton and 1 for Hitchin. So I believe they're at different stages in terms of the plan that has been compiled. But one of them does have a kit and one of them sort of in the next stages. That's helpful.
Because I mean, Kimpton is our flood risk area.
Yes, so they have been provided sort of with the pilot scheme. So I can find out a bit more detail and follow up afterwards in terms of whether they've had the kit and the plan. But that is the plan that they have both as part of the scheme.
Okay, thank you.
Marvellous, thank you very much. Can't see any other hands up, so if we want to carry on.
Thank you, Chair. So just to continue with the council activity, we were working with Hertfordshire County Council to deliver the local nature recovery strategy, which includes priorities for nature recovery in the county and the proposed actions to achieve those priorities. The strategy has now been published and it was officially launched in January with a Nature Summit event. Next, we've got the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme, which is a project to decarbonise council-owned buildings. The project to decarbonise our leisure facilities is progressing, and design work for the decarbonisation of Hitchin Town Hall, North Herts Museum and our council offices is progressing as the second part of the Public Sector Decarbonisation project. We also continue to do climate engagement. So the North Herts Engagement Hub for Climate Change and Sustainability, called the Climate Hive, now has 985 subscribers as of today. We continue to keep residents up to date with the latest surveys and consultations, eco events, National Environment Days, these cabinet panels for the environment and further council activity. Next, we've got the Sustainable Communities Grant, which is a grant scheme that we ran in autumn of last year for local sustainability projects. We ended up awarding nearly £63,000 to 6 organisations. To remind you who they were, the recipients were Royston Museum, which was for an installation of an air source heat pump system, Benslow Music Trust for the installation of EV charging points, that's in Hitchin, Kimpton Parish Council for installation of solar PV and battery storage, St Mary's Church in Ashwell for biodiversity improvements, Create Community for delivery of sustainability educational sessions, and Green Heat Co-op in Royston for retrofit training and a development of a home energy upgrade guide tailor-made for houses in Royston. The update on that project is that it's been 3 months since the funding was awarded, so we're expecting project updates to be provided in the next few months. And we've already heard from Royston Museum that their heat pump system has been installed and they're already feeling the benefit of the warmth, which is really good to hear. Lastly, just a reminder that our monthly sustainability briefings are available to view on the council website, and they include information on available funding like grant pots, upcoming events and council activity. So I'm now going to hand over to Amber for some updates on our sustainability strategy actions.
Thank you, Daisy. Yeah, I'm just going to be going through the sustainability strategy updates now. So just a reminder, our strategy runs from 2025 to 2030 and is available to view on our website if you're interested. Our actions are monitored on a quarterly basis by a climate and sustainability officer group, and also with our political liaison board, which is comprised of cabinet members and our leadership team. In terms of key progress on the strategy we've made so far, Daisy mentioned the ongoing progress with our leisure centres through the Public Sector Decarbonisation project, which we hope to have all 3, North Herts, Royston and Hitchin, finished by the summer. Next, our waste team have now got hydrogenated vegetable oil in use in all their refuse vehicles. All EVs have now also arrived, which is really good. They're being used as our street cleansing vehicles for collecting litter, rubbish and fly tips. Sustainability e-learning module has been launched internally for our council staff, which is covering our sustainability aims and what staff can do to work towards these. New EV charge points have gone live in our car parks. We've have work continuing with our Warm Home local grant, which is progressing nicely and has been advertised in our recent Winter Outlook magazine. Money, as Daisy mentioned, from the Sustainable Communities Grant Fund has now been fully distributed and projects are well underway. Next, our North Herts Council app has nearly 16,000 downloads, which is really great, and is contributing towards the effort to improve recycling rates. Lastly, we are implementing a process internally to record and monitor the impacts of extreme weather events on our services within the council. So overall, the strategy updates are quite similar to our last panel we had due to it being less than a month ago. However, hopefully we'll have more updates at the next panel on the 1st of April, as projects will continue to progress in the meantime. So that's everything on the sustainability strategy updates, but the last thing to say is we do have a environment inbox, which is a way for members of the public to get in touch with any suggestions. The address is, we can pop it in the chat, but it's environmentpanel@northherts.gov.uk if you wish to get in touch with any suggestions or any presentations for us to consider. So that's everything from us. If we could pass back to the chair now. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. I'll say any questions. I can see Councillor Strong's hand is up, so if you want to come in first.
Yeah, it's just a question on, let me just go my notes. This process to record and monitor the impacts of extreme weather events on our services, how are we defining what an extreme weather event is?
So at the minute, we're using like the Met Office sort of alerts or recordings, things like storms or sort of prolonged rain and things like that, things that can cause like tangible effects kind of thing. But we're kind of doing things that, like, not like a day of rain, like prolonged rain, like a month, or sorry, a week or something like that. We're kind of doing it through what the Met Office would deem to be like a amber or red risk warning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the biggest issue we've always had in effect to services has been snow.
Yeah.
And the other one is high winds when it brings trees down, and we get a lot of road closures.
Mm-hmm. The last time we had a big snow impact was a couple of years ago, just before Christmas, when it not only broke a lot of our bin lorries, but it also injured a huge amount of our crew. It was quite a rotten time. There's only so much you can do when you've got the snow up to your knees in certain areas.
And it also does prevent a lot of employees being able to get sometimes to their place of work as well. So often sometimes, you know, like the care line can be disrupted as well.
Hugely disrupted, yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong. Any further comments or questions? I can't see any hands up. Okay. Right, so carrying on. Okay, so if there's no further questions, I shall now be moving on to presentations. So the big exciting bit. So the education sector is responsible for 36% of public sector building emissions, and there are many opportunities to cut carbon in this sector, as well as embed sustainability and nature into schools, as we will hear from tonight's speakers shortly. In addition to the subjects that will be covered by speakers, there are several initiatives available for schools to reduce their carbon footprint, such as Eco Schools, Ashton's Let's Go Zero, and Solar Schools, which will be linked in the chat. Thank you, everyone. To present first, we have Nick Dean, the caretaker and site manager of Icknield Infants and Nursery School. Icknield Infants is a school in Letchworth who care about nature and sustainability. Nick is going to tell us about a biodiversity improvement project they have recently undertaken and how the children are involved with green activities at the school. Without further ado, can I please invite Nick to present?
Hello. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak to everybody this evening. My name's Nick and I am the site manager and caretaker of Icknield Infant School in Letchworth Garden City. I've been in position for approximately 5 years now. Yeah, I want to talk to you today about some of the initiatives we've got going on. So this first slide, as you can see, is a lovely aerial view of our school. We've got massive amounts of green space and natural areas that we can take advantage of. But up until 2021, we basically followed a procedure of manicuring all of our school fields, trimmed back all our hedges, and just basically making it look really presentable, but not necessarily giving our school many opportunities for any wildlife to thrive. One of the instances that highlighted this was we had a group of Year 1 students who, as part of their science and nature topics, were asked to go out into the school fields and see what sort of mini beasts and things they could find. Disappointingly, they came back only finding a snail, some ants, a few daisies and some dandelions. It became quite evident that given the green space that we've got on site, that's not really a good thing. So we took it on ourselves to try and do something about that. So a member of staff had located a bee orchid. If we could just move on to the next slide, please. And the bee orchids, as you can see from the picture up there, start off as a tiny little rosette. So they're actually quite difficult to spot if you don't know what you're looking for. But once you get your eye in, you can really see them sort of growing up. So member of staff pointed out this one orchid we had growing along the tree line. She marked it out with a flag and told me to make sure that the ground team didn't go anywhere near it and made sure that the that could survive to flower. We managed to get that one up to flower, but in identifying that one, we also realised that we actually had quite a lot of other bee orchids that were growing on site. Unfortunately, by this point, they had been mown and weren't given the best opportunity in order to thrive. So fast forward on to January 2022, I did a walk along the school field, litter picking, checking the perimeters as I would normally do, and managed to highlight 45 bee orchid rosettes. I physically put flags in all 45 of those. I called up our ground maintenance team and instructed them to make sure that they didn't mow near these flags. They were really cooperative of that, and we managed to get 45 or so bee orchids up to flowering. We took the opportunity to do an assembly for the children. They see me sticking flags in the school field. I'm continually asked what it is I'm doing and why I'm sticking flags there. So it was a great opportunity to get them engaged and for them to understand exactly what it was that we had on our site. So 45 orchids was a massive improvement from the single one we managed to get the year before. So roll it on again another 12 months to January 2023. This time I managed to see 100 or so rosettes that were growing across our school field. And it became evident that although our grounds contractors were happy to assist in any way they could, we were getting more and more of these little plants on our school field that we wanted to try and get to maturity. And for them whizzing around these little flags wasn't actually going to be a sustainable thing for them to do. So took the opportunity to have a conversation with the head teacher about introducing some no-mow areas in our school field. The other picture on there you can see is just a Google Maps snap of a later iteration of that no-mow area. I managed to negotiate with the head that we could have a seasonal flower meadow of approximately 500 square foot. And we could also have a no-mow area along the rear of our school field. The only caveats that I had to sort of engage with is that the playing field was still functional for things like football, sports days, and break times and lunch times for the children to enjoy. So the ground maintenance team, again, called them up and they were happy to help out. I marked out the meadow and they allowed that to grow. So they cut back the areas that needed to be done. And we had that nice little meadow. So of that area that we had, 50 of the bee orchids we had in that area, and there was one pyramidal orchid were identified, got them all through to flowering, and allowed them to disperse their seeds, and then we mowed back that entire area in October time. So again, fast forward on another 12 months to 2024, we left the same area grow this year, but we had 125 bee orchids and 2 pyramidal orchids make that their home, and which we managed to get all of them up to flowering stage. At this point, we were still just at sort of knee-high grass level, but I spoke with my business manager and managed to secure a bit of money from our school cash stocks, and we were able to buy some battery operated lawnmowers and trimming equipment. This allowed me to then trim these paths that you can see on this this picture here, which allowed myself and the children and any other interested parties to actually really get into that meadow area and see some of these bee orchids up close. So these little flowers, they're only, say, 20 centimetres high. When they're in long grass, they're actually quite difficult to see. But having these paths there allowed for much better viewing of the plants. I had a few members of the public and some pupils, parents and people like that who were interested in seeing these bee orchids. They'd never seen them before. Because of the assembly we'd done, their children had gone back and spoken about them, and people showed an interest and actually come to see these. So I organised 3 public tours this year to get members of the public to come on free of charge and have a wander around our school grounds, just come and see what it was we were doing, come and see these little bee orchids, and generally chat about what we were doing on the school site. We had quite well attended events, and I did ask for voluntary donations at the end. We managed to raise 50 quid, so that went some way to paying back the generosity of the school for getting the mowing equipment and everything in there, which was really good. So 2025, we repeated pretty much the same as we did in 2024, but due to the unfavourable weather conditions, we had a very, very dry run into the summer months. It meant that although we had the rosettes there in the January time, to get them to flowering was extremely difficult. We only got 20 plants that made it to flower, and rather than the month or so that they normally are there for, they were only there for 2 weeks before they then went to seed. So a little bit disappointing. So again, this year, I've already done my walk around the school fields, and this year I've located 350 rosettes across the school field. There's approximately 150 in the area that we put in our no-mow area. So we're looking at a good haul this year. So if we just move on to the next slide, please. So this again is a little area view just to give you an idea of what our school site looks like. So as caveated by the head teacher, we need to make sure that we've got some functionality to the school playing field. So we've got a football pitch area and the running track area. The top area that's got the little red circle and the yellow lines on, this is our no-mow area. That's never touched by our contractors at all. That's just left to grow as nature decides. The only bits I do mow is where that red circle is. I've cut like a little clearing in it, and we've popped a storyteller's chair there, so we can use that as an outdoor classroom. We can have story times out there, and the kids can actually have a bit of outdoor learning. And just to aid, again, to get through that long grass area, I've mowed some paths, which is indicated by the yellow indicators on there. We've got an orchard area, which is the triangle. So we've got a number of fruit trees there, which were planted a long time ago, and we added to some of those this last year. The school took part in its first Arbor Day, and each classroom had its own fruit tree, which we planted there to increase that orchard. And actually tomorrow we've got our Year 2 pupils are processing from the school to Standalone Farm to take part in their Arbor Day, where they're going to be planting a tree there. So I was privy to seeing them practicing in the hall. They've got these big banners and they're going to be chanting all the way down. So if you're anywhere in between Icknield School and Standalone Farm, listen out, because you'll hear all of our Year 2s chanting about how much they love trees and what trees do for them. Yeah, they're looking to have a great day out at Standalone Farm. We also have an allotment area. We've previously run some gardening clubs there, and we've had our previous incarnation of our PTA and some parent volunteers who were kind enough to help out with some teachers and get the kids really interested in sowing seeds and planting plants and seeing that through to maturity. One of the projects this year, which I've started looking to, is introducing a fairyland woodland. We're going to have den building in there. We've got some little fairy doors up already and some wind chimes and sun catchers and things like that, just to, again, try and make use of some of that area we've got. We've already got some log pile habitats, which we've popped in there to try and encourage some more mini beasts and things like that. Is there a question?
Yep, Joe, you got your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Nick, you're right.
How you doing? All right.
How are you doing? I know you from years ago, so do you know what? I am mesmerised about what you're doing, and honour to you. I want Nick Dean in my parish, in my neck of the woods, because I am the only one planting trees here. So well done, chap. Do you know what? You need to big it up. That is brilliant what you're doing. I wish we had more people like you in the community doing this stuff. So do you know what? Shout out to you, Nick. Well done, chap. Yeah. And if you're about, come and visit me in Kings Walden, because we need to sort this out. But well done, chap. Really love what you're doing, and I'm honoured, and I'm nice to see you after so many years. Well done, chap.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm more than happy to come and visit if you want. Yeah, no worries.
Loving the energy, Joe. Diane Ketcher, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Hello, Nick.
Hi, Diane. You all right?
Yes, thank you. Do you probably remember? Well, I don't know if you do, but I've been twice, I think, to have a look around your lovely.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
Meadow. I think I agree with the previous speaker. I think it's brilliant what you're doing, and you're doing more than I saw last time I visited. I was just wondering, you've been checking. You said right at the beginning that you'd sent some children out to look for insects and they'd come back, which was what kick-started the whole thing, apart from when you saw this first orchid. Have the older children been sent out since you've done all this work to do another check on the insect population, just to compare?
Yeah, well, as part of the last set of bee orchid tours that I did, I don't only do them for the wider population, we also do them for the kids at school. So we had some earlier sessions before the general public came in to have a look round, and part of that we had some bug checklists and tick sheets for them to go around with. So they've gone round and they ticked off various different mini beasts and things that they found. So yeah, we are trying to engage them in
what's the result?
Seeing what we have.
Did you see a difference?
Yeah, if you hold fire just a few moments, I've got a slide coming up which shows you some examples of some of the animals and the mini beasts which we've had on site. So yeah, I'll show you that in a minute.
Great, thanks.
And Sue's got her hand up as well.
Can I speak now?
Yes.
Okay. I love the orchids, and I, like Diane, been twice at least. And I wonder what your feeling is about actually getting more wildflowers into the borders around the school. Is that part of a program, or is it just impractical?
Again, I've got a slide coming up where I'll talk to you about our eco council that I've set up this year. And yeah, we'll hopefully touch base with some of that question in a few slides' time. All right. If we just move on to the next slide, please. So this is just some examples of some of our bee orchids which we had on site over the last couple of years. They're the national flower of Bedfordshire. I mean, I live in Biggleswade in Bedfordshire. I've never seen one this side of the border, but they're quite prevalent on our school site. Our school is basically right next to Wilbury Rec, for those of you who know Letchworth at all. Up until this year, they've had no bee orchids on that site. So considering there's basically a hedgerow separating our school and there, it was unusual that we hadn't seen any. But I was having one of my little walks around there earlier on this month, and I've actually identified 15 bee orchid rosettes growing there, which is the first time I've seen those there. So it looks as though the John O'Connor's, who are doing their ground maintenance there, they've left some wildflower meadows where they've not mowed it, and it's within those areas where these bee orchids are now starting to show through. So it does look like that if we let nature have a bit of a foothold, these little darlings do seem to start popping up, which is really good. Next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, I sort of mentioned about this a moment ago. So this is just a few snapshots of some of the wildlife that I've managed to take photos of as I've been going around. So a couple of years ago, we had a wily little robin who had made her nest in amongst some of our nursery children's wellies. It happened over the Easter holidays. We came back and we noticed that there was this little robin that was sitting outside the classroom waiting for the children to go in. And when it did, one of the teachers noticed it was going into the welly rack. And on a bit of closer inspection, we managed to uncover that it had a nest there with 5 eggs. Thankfully, those chicks all hatched. So we had some nice robin chicks and they all fledged as well, which is fantastic. Just below that is a photo of a pied wagtail nest. The summer of 2022, we had our entire school roof replaced and had about an extra foot of insulation added onto it. We had a stack of insulation up on the roof, and when we went to come and clear it down, we saw that there was actually this nesting couple that had made home just underneath a bit of the insulation. Again, really good engagement with the contractors we had there. They were happy to leave that insulation up there until the nest was empty, so that was great. Obviously, being Letchworth, we have our resident black squirrels that live on site. They fight for conkers and acorns and such with the grey squirrels. And we've also got a family of foxes that used to live under our mobile until we had to have that proofed because of some nasty smells from coming underneath from their habitat, and then they moved to underneath the family centre on site. And I think this year they've moved underneath one of our sheds on the grounds. But if you are nice and quiet and in early in the mornings, you see foxes going around, and some of our neighbours have commented that when they can look over into our school field, they often see some of the fox cubs frolicking around. And then the last one up in the top corner is obviously a little hedgehog. Again, over the Easter holidays, it had found itself a nice, quiet little cosy area. And then obviously the children came back and the poor little thing was scared witless. So we had to rescue him and relocate him to a quieter point in our school. Next slide, please. And then here are the little mini beasts, which we were mentioning earlier. So I won't go through all of them. You can see we've got a range of butterflies, caterpillars on there. We've got some crickets, some amorous red-brown longhorn beetles, and the devil's coach horse beetle, which is my particular favourite. That little fella was stomping across our playground when I was carting some stuff from one side to the other. And then the 2 wasps you can see on there are digger wasps. So they're solitary wasps that are made home in our softer, sandier area in our nursery playground. So speaking to some pest experts, we found out actually they're pretty harmless, and they do vacate their nests over the summer holidays. These made their home about a week before we broke up for the summer, so we decided just to leave them where they were. Spoke to the kids, told them to make sure they were giving them some distance when they were looking at what they're doing, and yeah, they were just allowed to just enjoy the grounds whilst the kids were off for summer. Next slide, please. So the Eco Council. The Eco Council was something I put together this year, partially because I wanted to drive forward some of the eco mentality that we were building at the school, and particularly wanted to get the children more involved in what we did in terms of driving that forward. We also had the opportunity to apply for a Royal Horticultural Society grant, which was the main aim was to convert grey to green spaces, and you had the opportunity to apply for up to £5,000 in order to do that. So we had an option of either do we go for the full £5,000 and get a big project to change some grey to green spaces, or did we want to go for smaller amounts where we could spend £1,000 on wildlife cameras, bird boxes, other habitat boxes, gardening equipment, or things like that. So in order to get a good cross-section of the whole school, I decided to get 2 children from each class out of our year 1s and year 2s. And myself chairing it along with one of the early years teachers, so we could get the early years children's views and make sure they were engaged as well. So the council's made up of 10 children, and you can see their little artwork they've got there to show themselves on our notice board. So we had our first meeting and we spoke through the options. Needless to say, they were really, really excited about the prospect of having a pond. They wanted to bring fish in from home to put in the ponds. They wanted all sorts of things to go in there. But we made them go back to their classes and speak to their peers just to get an idea of what their actual whole class wanted. They came back 2 weeks later, and basically everybody did really want to go for the pond. They also wanted all the other stuff as well, but the pond was the big driving force for them. So we applied for the grant, and thankfully we got awarded that. So the £5,000 has landed in the school account already, and we've instructed a local company called Women with Waders, who are starting work digging our pond on Monday of half term. So that will be completed by the end of half term, and we can really start incorporating some pond dipping and encouraging some of the wildlife that water brings to the school, which should be really, really interesting. Where am I to? So yeah, as part of that, health and safety also has to kick in. If we've got an open pond on our school field, we need to make sure that children are safe around that. So again, spoke to my business manager and to the head teacher, and they've agreed to fund for fencing around the pond. So we will have a pond that's been installed for pretty much the full £5,000 grant, and the school, as part of our maintenance and upkeep budget, will fund the fencing. Women with Waders, I think one of the ladies used to be a teaching assistant at the school, and her daughter, who actually runs the company, used to be a pupil at the school. So they have a real vested interest, and they're really excited to come on board with this project. And as that, they've gone, supplying 50% of the planting and the plants for us free of charge, which brought that cost of the pond from just over £5,000 to under it. So we were able to afford the entire pond installation for the Royal Horticultural Society grant money, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, next slide, please. We're pretty much there. So yeah, this is just an idea of potentially what the pond will look like. I think we have decided not to go for the decking area. We've tried to keep it as natural as possible. We're going to have one side which is going to be shallower area, so that's ideal for birds drinking and bathing, but also for frogs and other things spawning in there, which will be brilliant. So the enclosure we've got with the fencing will leave a little bit of extra space in there, so we have the option to potentially get a beehive in that area as well. I know we've got some local beekeepers, and I've seen on Facebook pages they're often looking for places to site new hives, and that's something which we potentially might be able to incorporate further down the line. Which again will add to the biodiversity and help with our pollinating and all other good things that bees bring. That's pretty much it for me, I think. Is there any questions at all?
Thank you so much, Nick. Do we have any further questions for Nick? I see you've got your hand up. So I couldn't find the mute button earlier either.
I'm just so absolutely enthralled by what you're doing as a caretaker for one school. Do you get the opportunity of actually disseminating some of what you're doing to the other schools, because it just strikes me that perhaps people haven't got the same kind of natural, nature-based interest that you have. But I'm sure that we're very fortunate in Letchworth to have lovely green fields and spaces around our schools. And so most of them, I'm sure, would be able to do that if they had the right lead.
Absolutely. I know as part of the Orchid Tours as well, I literally invited as many local organisations I possibly could get hold of. And one of the people who came to visit was Emma Cantu, who works for the council, and she was compiling reports about increasing biodiversity in schools and what schools could do. So she's case studied the work that we've done at Icknield to try and roll that out to other schools, which is great. But as I alluded to Joe earlier, I'm happy to come out to other schools. I am a one-man band at Icknield, so I'm busy a lot of the time, but I'm always happy to come and support if other schools show an interest in that.
Thank you.
Marvellous. Councillor Strong. You're on mute.
I
There we
know,
go.
so I don't know why, but computer error, couldn't get the microphone. What a really, I was going to say, what a very inspiring talk to us, Nick. If you ever need trees, I'm a member of a Rotary Club, and we have a tree nursery in Growing People, and we're always digging them out, looking for places to plant them. And they are quite mature, but you know, there are lots of links there if you ever need some. And want that. And also we have a group that do a lot of water monitoring in the rivers. So again, if you're interested in that, I can put you in touch.
Lovely. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Marvellous. Thank you. And there was another hand up. Where's it gone? Diane Ketcher.
Would you like any more pond plants, Nick? I've got a pond in my garden with marginal plants like I've forgotten the name of it. And a few things like water soldiers that are in and bog bean and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think at the moment, because the pond hasn't started being dug yet, so
which you do come and
I don't know at the moment, but I will be more than welcome to come and have a look at the pond once it's done and see if we've got any space for anything extra in there. But yeah, as I said, Women with Waders have been really fantastic in terms of donating some plants and the planting there. So they're specifically creating an ecosystem in the pond that will mean there'll be minimal intervention will be needed. Nature will hopefully take care of itself whilst it's there. There'll be a little bit of removing leaves and things like that, I'm sure, but the planting is specifically going to be to try and keep it as natural and self-sustaining as possible. But yeah, once we sort of get our head around having a pond on site and how we use it, then yeah, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to take any donations if they're going.
And offering ponds are one of my great loves, actually. Pond dipping is probably used to be my favourite activity. So if you'd like any help with pond dipping, just identifying things and working with the children.
Yeah, I mean, again, another thing that I'm really grateful for the school. They've given me the opportunity to train up to level 3 for Forest School as well. So I start my training on that next month. So I'm hoping part of that will involve sort of engagement with water and pond dipping and things like that. So, but yeah, again, any help will be more than appreciated. So yeah, I think I've got your contact details, Diane, so I'll be in contact.
You probably have. Right. Okay, good. I shall look forward to it.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much. Rhys Waterman.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, I'm sustainability lead at Hitchin Boys. I just wanted to say I absolutely love what you're doing. I was just interested for your grant for the pond. What did you get that through?
That I'm not sure exactly which route it came through. As I alluded to, I did contact a lot of companies to try and drum up some interest with the Bee Orchid tours. So I don't know exactly where that wangled through, but the Royal Horticultural Society actually approached us with the opportunity to apply for the grant. It was non-competitive, so as long as you could meet the criteria and you were going to be spending the money in a certain time frame and what they wanted to achieve by it, you basically were awarded the money. So yeah, I think I got sent some further details for some other grants. So yeah, I'll get your contact details, Reese, and I'll ping you over a link, because again, I think this one was slightly more competitive, but it was a similar idea to the RHS one which we applied.
That'd be amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Marvellous. Like a networking event. Right. Thank you so much, Nick. I went to Icknield Infants 35 years ago and skinned my knees on that playground. I distinctly remember that huge, vast space of grass, and the main exciting bit was, I think, that there was 1 or 2 trees, and then there was the dip at the side that you could roll down, and then you got told off by the dinner ladies, you know.
Yeah.
And so seeing how much it's changed over the years and the use of space that's come in and what's happening with it is just so exciting to see all these new things, all these textures and colours and the flowers and all the work that's gone into it. Just looks glorious, and you've done such a fantastic job in the turnaround of the biodiversity there with the new bugs that you have. So yeah, I'm thrilled with that, and I bet the kids love it as well.
They do, yeah. Who doesn't love a mini beast?
Oh, always, always. Right, if there's no further questions, I believe there's a couple of comments in the chat, so you guys might want to scour through those and make some notes and things, because obviously that's going to disappear once everyone's gone. I shall then move on to our next presentation, and I can see that we have both of them here in the room now. So moving on to present second, we have 2 speakers who are involved in the construction of Buntingford First School, which is the first net zero school in the UK. They are Mark Miller, who was the lead architect for the design of the school, and James Headley Hamilton, who led the pre-construction stage. Buntingford First School is an impressive example of what can be achieved when sustainability is placed at the heart of a school, from construction to day-to-day operations. And now I will now invite Mark and James to present on this.
Thank you. I think our slides should be loading now. Yeah, so I'm James Headley Hamilton. I worked alongside Mark in the pre-construction stage of Buntingford First School, which, like Amy just said, was Hertfordshire's first net zero carbon school. And it was actually England's first carbon neutral school building for both operational and embodied carbon. And it was in line with Herts County Council's sustainability strategy and their ambition to be net zero and carbon neutral by 2030. If you go on to the next slide. Yeah, so it was a team made up of Hertfordshire County Council, Morgan Sindall Construction were the construction arm, which is who I'm employed by, Holmes Miller were the architect, and then Holmes Miller in-house sustainability consultant was SUS Sustainability. And we worked as a team to look at things such as building form, massing, layout, orientation, how we could enhance the fabric of the design, so that not only was it what can we do from a sustainability factor from the external facade, it was a holistic approach to look at the whole building. And it was to try and improve not only the building itself, but actually how the pupils learn within the school. And Mark will come on to that a little bit later in the presentation, I'm sure, so I won't take away from him. But effectively, it was lowering the carbon emission and trying to just improve learners and their environment. If you go on to the next slide, that's just an image of the school. As you can see, it's quite sort of like a modern looking school material wise, but from the design that Mark and the team came up with, it's still quite playful. It's still inviting. It doesn't have to be kind of like a dull design or a design that doesn't sort of enhance the environment that the children are in. It's a school that the children like going to. They learn very well. And Mark will, I'm sure, come on to some bits about the colours and how that affects the day-to-day children's behaviour in the school. So if you go to the next slide, I'll pass over to Mark, who will introduce himself and talk a little bit more about the school.
Thank you, James. Good evening, everybody. Good to get a chance to speak to you this evening. I think as James has kicked off by introducing the brief for the school at face value, is pretty much an ordinary two-form entry school. The brief and the accommodation schedule for the building largely aligned with this part of education's accommodation schedule requirements. So in terms of classroom sizes and provision of sports halls and provision of kitchens, there's nothing out of the ordinary that was coming forward in terms of that element of the briefing for the project. However, it was the sustainability brief that was added on to the project that really set this building apart. There was first off a demand to reduce energy use in the building to below 65 kilowatts per metre squared per annum, which is a really tight target for a building of this size and nature. And allied to that, an ambition to offset through renewable energy sources that entire energy use on site. So it essentially means that the council could unplug the building from the grid, and through PV panels and through air source heat pumps, the building would continue to function without issue. The use of embodied carbon, though, is only something that the Department of Education is only now focusing on through their new framework. But Hertfordshire County Council back in 2021 decided they wanted to try and target a capped figure of 620 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per metre squared, not only for the building, but also for the landscaping, the site infrastructure, the playground and the parking, which for the time was a really challenging target to meet. And to make sure that that carbon use was also offset, introducing a gold standard offsetting scheme, so that having reduced the carbon down to the minimum, there was then commitment to offset that through appropriate kind of planting schemes and infrastructure projects. But of course, there on in, it was then looking at how we actually enhance the building for the pupils and the staff within it. And we're making sure we're using the most natural products on the interior. We're using a fully timber solution for the structure of the school and keeping that exposed. We're removing products that have kind of formaldehydes and volatile organic compounds in them, so that the kids are breathing a far better air within the classroom space. The teaching staff are operating in a far nicer condition. They're looking out onto environment that's benefiting from a 20% biodiversity net gain across the wider site. And hopefully in the building, looking at reducing their consumption, so water being one of those aspects, but looking at how we can control renewable or replaceable items in the building to keep it as efficient as possible once the team here were finished and the school take occupation for the years to come. But all that really focused around what was a bespoke soft landings matrix, which kind of guided the process of the team from design through to construction. And if you're okay, we'll just tab on to the next slide. It begins to discuss that. Oh, sorry, and again, please. So I guess the key for us was to make sure that the end user team, the client team, felt that they were in charge of the sustainability aspects of the project. They had a real, I guess, a kind of ownership over some of the decisions that are being made. So one of the key things that we did as a team was actually test a number of different building options for them. Give them an understanding as to where the carbon was being spent in relation to both the building and the site. A key thing here was things like the footprint of the building. By going to single story, you've got far more elevation, far more building footprint touching the ground, far more heat loss through the ground, through that kind of arrangement, greater foundations, large amount of concrete pour, all these sorts of things that are that kind of leading to a kind of higher carbon use. Moving to single story, double stacking the accommodation, getting the benefits of reduced footprint, reducing heat loss through the fabric. They were things that we could show kind of illustratively to the council and to the kind of school team to make them aware of some of the decisions they were making through the kind of early design process. And I think a really positive aspect of this was the green travel plan that was introduced. The school is serving a new housing community to the south of Buntingford School. And rather than put in what could have been a car parking provision of over 120 spaces and actually eating up the majority of the carbon budget for the school itself, a focus on putting in a really integrated green travel plan that reduced the parking numbers down, that allowed a shared ownership over spaces with the Bury Football Club that would use it the weekend and avoid duplication of spaces, and made sure some of that, as I say, that carbon budget was fed back into the main building. So it was kind of working very kind of integratedly with the school team to make sure these decisions were evident, make sure they were happy with some of the decisions being made, and as I say, take ownership over the sustainability brief as it was evolving. So if we tab on to the next slide, the way we monitored that through the design process is to use what's called the REBA plan of work, which essentially guides the majority of projects in the UK from design brief stage and kind of concept design work right the way through to completion, construction, and in use. Now that generally follows a very defined list of kind of working methodologies to get a building designed and taken through tender. What we did was put a green overlay over the top of that. So we looked at how we could actually factor in key components to do with well-being within the building, how we can factor in elements to do with kind of climate resilience, how we can make sure that the overall kind of robustness of the building for the council was factored into this kind of integrated approach. We used this plan of work to set targets for a number of different kind of parties across the project, making sure that the soft landings element of the building, the kind of point of use where the school become involved in the school, was actually factored in from the start. So all the things we're expecting them to benefit from and to continue to upkeep, as they take occupation of the school, thought about from the start and made sure they were kind of taken through the design process from start to finish. But in order to try and avoid overburdening this, and in order to try and avoid using acronyms and jargon and keep it to a project that everybody understood, we grouped all the key targets for the project under 3 key headings. And we used climate, well-being, and resilience as the 3 key themes right across the project to set these targets, assign methodologies for understanding how the targets would be met, and then recording those targets on completion to make sure we'd actually delivered what we said we would do. So the slides kind of coming up just discuss those themes in a bit more detail. The next slide's looking at the climate theme. So as I mentioned, we're looking to try and achieve a 65 kilowatt per meter squared per annum target for operational energy. To make sure we hit that, we use passive house methodology to set that target and to track the design and performance of the building through to completion. Now, passive house is very stringent in terms of its calculation approach, in terms of assessing how the design comes together, in terms of looking at how MEP systems are integrated within the building, looking at all the energy sources all the way down to the consumables in the classroom, the printers, the iPhones, the tablets that are plugged in, making sure that everything's recorded so we've got a really accurate picture of how the building will perform in use. And then through the design and through the monitoring of that, and then through James's team in construction, making sure we're actually delivering to the letter against the design information so there is no performance gap. What we're saying we're going to achieve, we're generally delivering at the end of the project. On the embodied carbon piece, I've talked around the fact we've used timber throughout, which really helped in terms of dropping down the carbon use significantly across the build. But really interesting things, again, that Morgan Sintel introduced was things like reuse of oil rig pipework within the foundations and the pile foundations of the building. So we're recycling material that's already been used for a previous purpose and bringing it back into use as the foundations of the school. Using recycled aggregates within the foundation build-up again, so it's not virgin material we're using all the time. Using timber cladding on the outside, which again has got a kind of 100-year kind of lifespan to it, and again is coming from a carbon neutral and sustainable source. As I say, all the way down to looking at how the consumables in the building are properly monitored, so the building is definitively being used and performing as designed. Under the next theme on the next page, I think one of the crucial ones is the kind of well-being aspect of the building and making sure that the pupils feel as though they're in a really positive environment for learning and the staff feel as though they've got an environment that's attuned to teaching and tuition. So the air quality was a key one for that. We put in an air quality monitoring plan within the building. I'd say with the look at the products we were specifying to make sure that on their arrival, they weren't introducing formaldehydes and kind of toxins within the air of the school. Certainly mitigated any form of toxicity in the paintwork, looked at really natural products and water-based products throughout, so the air quality was as good as it possibly could be. And then through a really efficient air handling system, made sure that the CO2 concentration in the building was capped at 900 parts per million, which made sure that the pupils are breathing in fresh air all the time. The CO2 isn't making them feel tired and sleepy, the temperature's controlled, and they're generally in a building that's attuned for concentration and for learning. And that's all the way through to, again, the end of the project, where we've now conducted occupant satisfaction surveys to make sure the pupils feel comfortable, to make sure the staff feel they're in an environment that's akin for teaching, to make sure the FM staff understand how the building is supposed to operate and how it can continue to perform. And through those questionnaires, we can then refine and tweak the building to make sure, again, it stays responsive to how the school users want to operate. And then the final theme, which is a really big one, covers resilience. And it's everything from making sure the building stays flexible for future years to making sure that actually we're offering a building that's future-proof for the council, and we're essentially safeguarding investment, putting money into the right place, making sure this is a building that's going to have longevity for future years. So the timber structure really helps. It gives us essentially a load-bearing structure right across the school. It means they can pin anything to any wall. They can fit hoist to any wall. They've got a patches for shelving. They can adapt and reconstruct parts of the school as they want. We've designed it for future expansion, so they can grow to a full 2-form entry primary school rather than being a first school if they get the catchment and the school capacity to do so. Designing it for climate change. So we did future-proof the building through looking at the 2080 and 2050 weather files to understand what temperatures could climb to understand the literage of volume of water that rainfall could occur on the roof, to look at how the facade would respond to different changing temperatures. And all that was modelled and assessed to make sure, again, this building can stay future-proof for the decades to come. And of course, we tracked all that then through life cycle analysis and cost analysis to make sure that all the products we're putting in actually on a renewable schedule maintain a really efficient and really functional building for the school and the trust moving forward. So along with being sustainable just now, they're not then having to bring in more products later down the line through a replacement strategy, which then could push up the embodied carbon total over the course of the 50-year lifespan of the building. So it was all these things that really kind of factored together that really formed the brief for the school, and as a result created a really exciting building to work on and a really interesting template for education within Hertfordshire. But of course, from my side, it was the design work and the kind of paper exercise that we were involved in, doing the calculations, making sure we had a really robust set of drawings for the construction team. And thankfully, we're working with James and Morgan Sindel, who then picked up when we left off and took it through to site. So, James, I'll maybe pass back to you to talk about what we've delivered.
Yeah, of course. So effectively, if you just go to the next slide. So you won't be able to see those figures on there, and they won't make a huge amount of sense to anyone on this call, probably. And they probably don't make a huge amount of sense to me. But crudely, what this shows is that the school performs better than it was designed to perform. So fundamentally, the building that Mark designed and that we built performed better from an energy point of view. And effectively, we've been back every 6 to 12 months and carried out monitoring to check how the building is performing and just to make sure that it is performing as designed. There's places where we've had to make little changes and where we've seen areas where we can improve it in the mechanical and electrical system. So we've done that as the building's got through its lifestyle. And I think fundamentally, the key element of the design from a Hertfordshire County Council point of view was to be net zero, and we've achieved that. The Passive House accreditation has been submitted, and we are, I think, unless Mark says different, still awaiting the formal certification. But we've effectively ticked all the boxes from a Passive House point of view. We're just waiting for the final piece of paper to say that it has the accreditation. But effectively, the hard work that Mark and his architectural team and SUS put in should mean that that is a tick box exercise now, and we're just waiting for that formal certification. And I think the fundamentals of what it shows is what can be achieved when you take an approach to a school which is slightly different to the norm. We still, like Mark said, had a standard brief for a standard school, and it was just taking a little bit of a different view, and it was Hertfordshire County Council who wanted to see what could be done in a school environment and whether it could achieve carbon neutral and be the first in England. I think if you go to the next slide, I think it's just a couple of images of the school, a couple more images. But effectively, I think it's just to cover that Buntingford has provided kind of a blueprint for carbon neutral schools, but not only in Hertfordshire and their home counties, but right across the UK. We get visitors want to come and see the school from all over. We've held quite a few events at the school where other contractors, other designers, and members of the sort of construction industry have attended. And I think it just shows that with kind of like the right team and a strategy from the outset, that you can achieve a school that not only ticks from a carbon point of view, but it actually enhances the environment for the learners. So that's everything from me and Mark, and we'll open the floor to any questions that anyone's got.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Emma Fernandez.
I think it looks fabulous, I have to say. I work in a school that was built in the 1980s. It's a nightmare. It's cold in winter. It's too hot in summer. And with that in mind, I was just kind of wondering about the orientation of the classrooms. And I mean, do they get a lot of sun coming in, and how you might mitigate overheating problems and how that was factored in?
That's a brilliant question, Emma, and actually one I probably should have talked about right from the kick-off when we had the initial site studies with the council and the schools team. The reason we've got the huge windows in the classrooms is because they all face north. There's no direct solar gain, there's no southerly exposure, overheating is controlled. We've essentially got a positive negative bias over the building. So where the hall and the dining hall and the kitchens on the south facades, we've tightened up the building. The openings are far smaller. They're covered in brise soleil or solar shading because we know we're going to get a whole host of heat gain there. But you can then temper that on the north by opening up the windows, letting the kids see the view and the connection to nature, bring in more controlled light into the teaching space, so you're not going to get the glare on the whiteboard. You get the feeling that you're in a natural environment more of the day, and actually you can counter the fact there's slightly more heat loss off the back of the building. So all in all, keeping the thing in balance, but as you say, putting the windows where you want to have them, tightening up where it's less crucial, and trying to, as you say, avoid those issues with overheating and kind of glare and stuff in the spaces. So yeah, a really crucial point of the design.
Yeah, it looks fabulous. I mean, we end up with the blinds down in the summer because it's too bright, and then it's awful. You're cutting out all that lovely light, and it's horrible. It's like being in a cave, but the rooms look fabulous. The color palette and everything, it looks very calm.
Thank you very much. We're really, really proud of it. And I think what you said about daylight is really important. What we've actually managed to do with the MEP engineers on the project is use something called DALI bias on the lighting, which means if you're closer to the window, the lighting will go off automatically. It's only when you go back into the depth of the building, the lights will start to come on. It means you've then got a real uniformity right across the classroom. You get the same quality of light at the back desk as you do with the front desk, but you use less reliance on electricity when you've got the benefits of the windows there. So it's all these little subtle changes that just drops down the energy demand, but as you say, fundamentally makes it better to teach it and to learn in.
I really hope it gets rolled out as a role model across the country, because it does look really good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It's really interesting.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Are there any further questions or comments from anybody? No, I think oh, Glyn.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Awesome. We've talked about how the environmental benefits of it. Has it proven to be a good school in terms of its function for the children? And the environmental benefits are awesome, but in terms of cost of build, what's the comparison to sort of a standard school and this one? Yeah, thank you.
I can cover the cost element, and Mark can probably cover the learner's environment. But effectively, from a cost point of view, there is a premium without a doubt. And effectively, what we've learned on this one will make the next one more efficient and again. So the more we build, and the more that are built, not necessarily just by Morgan Sindall, it will become more efficient. But there is definitely a cost element. there's some places where savings were made in the way that you look at the internal build up. It's not got loads of finishes on it. It's not got lots of materials. There is a lot of natural materials used. So the timber has been left as timber. It hasn't got plasterboard and plaster and then lots of other materials. So there is places where savings were made, but I'd be wrong to say that it didn't come at a level of a premium. I think the positive element is that the new DFE requirements are going to push the majority of schools to an element of this. It won't be to the nth degree of Buntingford, but there is lots of good elements that the new DFE framework has that will sort of take on little bits of what Buntingford did. So it should improve the quality of schools going forward.
Thanks, James.
They would have a tail.
I guess in terms of the environment in the school, the POE we've done, the post-occupancy evaluation with the school has been really positive. The kids are reporting it's a nice environment to be in. I think the staff are reporting that pupil concentration is better because they're in a more focused environment. They've all reported, regardless of temperature fluctuations that we've had in the southeast, it's a very constant and very regulated temperature in the building, so you're never getting that too hot, too cold scenario happening. So all that's kind of really leading to being a better environment for learning. But I think perhaps what's more important is the outreach the school are now doing, and they have kind of gone around a number of schools within East Hertfordshire to try and extol the benefits of sustainable building, talk to them about what their schools achieved, talking about the embodied carbon aspects of the timber. They've helped us as architects design some infographics across the building, so they've actually taken some of the key targets and they've stylized that themselves, which now dances down the corridor of the school. So I think along with being a nice place to learn, hopefully a really focused place to learn, I think they've got a real embedded pride in what the building's offering. And then, as you say, you're kind of encouraging the next generation down this sort of line of thinking. So hopefully it's a kind of lessons learned that will keep on continuing.
Yeah. Just one other thing, Glenn, to touch on cost. I think it's the obviously the capex is higher, but there is the OPEX to consider, and the OPEX is considerably less than a standard school. So I think that obviously council budgets tend to allow for the capex, and the OPEX is then down to the user, and I think that's where the difficulties come. But yeah, there is a capex cost.
I mean, so there's that upfront cost in terms of building it. And then running it is obviously going to cost a lot less.
Yeah.
What's the sort of payback time? But I guess what you've just said kind of makes that fairly irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult element. That's exactly the difficult element, is that you've got schools who pay for the operational side of it, and you've got either DFE funding or councils, etc., that obviously cover the capex. So it's always going to be that push and pull, isn't it, between the two?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no further questions, I shall fiddle with my computer a bit more, as it doesn't do what I want it to do. There we go. And again. Thank you so much, guys. That was fantastic and fascinating. The school looks amazing. I love the colour scheme. Lovely, calm and neutral, and it just looks marvellous. I'm sure the kids are loving it. Right. Finally, our last speaker is Reese Waterman, who is a science teacher, biologist, and the sustainability leader at Hitchin Boys School. The school is part of a series of green initiatives to improve eco-consciousness and sustainability. It's also embedded into the students' curriculum. Can I please invite Reese to present? Thank you.
Hi there, everyone. So yeah, just for some context, I've been sustainability leader at Hitchin Boys School for 1.5 years now. I inherited a very strong foundation. The previous 2 years, we achieved the Eco Schools Green Flag with distinction. So no pressure there, taking over from that. But my role really has been about building, not kind of reinventing, but making it, I guess, a bigger part of our kind of community's life, making sure that students actually get all of those benefits that I guess we know nature can offer us, but perhaps they don't. So a big part of the school already was about making sustainability visible and intentional. So you can see the notice board on the top right there is literally the first thing that visitors see as they walk through our reception doors, and also is explicitly in our school development plan. It's one of our main areas. We also have some kind of early quick wins. So once you go through the reception area, you come onto this kind of amazing quad area. And so just last year, we put in these planters. Springtime, we're going to put a lavender bush all around the quad area. And so it's just about as soon as people walk in, they kind of realize that these, that sustainability matters. And it's really about kind of who we are as a school. Sorry, yeah, next slide, please. So whilst it's not my kind of, I guess, main love, but sustainability undoubtedly has a financial and kind of operational dimension. I'm very fortunate here in that our business manager and our head teacher always have it at kind of the forefront of their minds. And so often this side of things takes care of itself, but massive change we had last year was all of our lighting, changed to LEDs, which could give us as much as 80% energy reduction. All of our new builds have solar panels. So I took just a Google Maps kind of screen grab of our site. You can see we've got a pretty massive site. We're very fortunate. Right down on the bottom there, you can see the new builds. It's not quite visible, I don't think, from this far out, but yeah, the solar panels already on there. A lot of our other buildings are like hundreds of years old, and so not always possible to get solar panels on there. But where possible, basically, we've put in solar panels, and there is ongoing work to see like where else we can put them in. Whilst we're kind of on the subject of the site map, later on when I talk about the woodland area, you can kind of see that kind of in the middle to the right, and then all the field margins along Elmside Walk and Fish Ponds Road is kind of a big focus of ours. Something I did undertake last year was a travel survey just to see like how many of our students have a kind of green method of transport. And something that came from kind of a follow-up Google response from that was that actually we could get more students cycling in if we increased our provision of the bike shed. So that's something that I'm currently trying to explore, is basically, like I think a lot of schools, budget's tight. And so how do we get funding for an additional bike shed? We do already have one, but it's just that bikes are already kind of spilling out from there. And then another thing that we did last year was carbon counting, and that's where the Let's Go Zero team have really helped us with that, which moves me nicely onto our next slide. So yeah, awards and affiliations. I mean, yeah, this is just a bit of a shout out slide, but I mean, yeah, the kind of work that we've done in the last year and a half is made so much easier when we kind of get external expertise in, and that really did kind of kickstart with Let's Go Zero. So we had Jeremy from Let's Go Zero come in and made us a clear action plan, which we've been following religiously. But yeah, part of that was kind of counting our carbon and then seeing what steps we can take to reduce that. At the same time, we had a couple of guys in from Hearts Wildlife Trust, and so they've given me a number of recommendations, which again has been really nice for me running the eco committee to kind of have some clear insight on what will make the biggest difference for the biodiversity on site. Also, another kind of like two companies which I've just kind of stumbled across in my time is Nature Park, which has got a lot of lovely activities. I was going to particularly highlight that for any primary schools listening, because a lot of the activities I think would be really great for those younger years. It works with some of my year 7 and 8s, but yeah, for any primary schools, if they explore Nature Park, it's a really good one. And then Operation Future Hope is another really nice one, particularly for those rainy days where perhaps going outside isn't always possible. if the kids aren't well equipped. Yeah, they've got a lot of nice videos on there. And I think I've already talked about the eco schools. So again, we did get another green flag with distinction, and this time a recognition for our work in biodiversity, which I'll talk about in just a little bit more detail. So could we go next slide, please? Oh, sorry, and one more. I think they're in the wrong order. Yeah, so when I started kind of a year and a half ago, I kind of already touched upon this, but I really started with kind of, I guess, 3 kind of clear priorities. So that was how do we increase kind of community engagement? Think about what does being a sustainable school actually mean, and how do people take part and not just observe that? A big part of whenever I do assemblies is trying to get out this message to students that actually understanding that protecting nature is actually a really enjoyable thing to do. It's not just about making sacrifices. And actually, if students engage in nature, there's actually so many benefits for them, and it can be a really fun thing to do. Then my next area of focus was, I guess, being a biology teacher. For me, was the biodiversity improvement. I knew that this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. It's tangible, it's visible, it's student friendly. But yeah, it's a lovely way to get people actually out in nature. And then finally, the next kind of area of focus was inclusion. And that comes really from the fact that Ofsted, unfortunately, they govern a lot of what we do at schools, but you know, inclusion is now part of what one of the areas that Ofsted will kind of grade a school on. And for me, you know, sustainability benefits everyone, but I think it's got a real special opportunity to particularly benefit those students with SEN, pupil premium students, and those students that perhaps are possibly least likely to spend time outdoors. And so a question that was driving or drives a lot of what I do is, how do we get the students who need nature most into nature? I think if you want to go back one slide. Yeah, so I mean, so how have we been getting kind of community engagement kind of in practice? So there already was an eco committee in place when I took over, but we've now made those meetings far more regular. So every Tuesday lunchtime, we have eco committee. It's open for any students to participate, but we have students right the way across from year 7 up to a couple of guys in 6th form, particularly year 7, 8, 9. We have a lot of students engaging in the eco committee, and also students from who are volunteering as part of their DofE program. But yeah, by having it every Tuesday lunchtime, it's consistent, it's predictable. What we actually do varies greatly, but we're always outdoor when possible. Like I said before, we've got a few videos and stuff that we sometimes watch if the weather just doesn't allow. But yeah, it's always linked to kind of real projects, not just kind of token tasks. So in terms of like how we get the community involved further afield than that, so parents just as well as the students, we've had a tree planting day. So we had parents and students come in. So we had a load of trees in from the Woodland Trust. So I think that occasion I had 420 saplings to plant. So we spent a Saturday morning doing that. And that was where, if you think back to the aerial photo, all of the trees that I've planted, so both years I've planted 420 saplings. That is all about filling out the hedgerow. So I've done double planting. They are very kind of small saplings, but they'll be allowed to grow up. We'll then maintain them at a suitable height, but on one of our field margins, there's actually no hedgerow at all. So on that particular one, kind of every kind of 5 meters or so, we will leave a tree to go into a proper big kind of mature tree. But yeah, that was a lovely way to get parents involved and like feeling part of the community. And we also did a litter picking event as well. We do have introduced an annual Green Week. So again, this is student and parent involvement. So they have an email each day about what that activity is for the day. So for example, Friday was Future Wild Friday. So that was encouraging students, parents to have part of their garden go wild. So a no-mow area. And then they were encouraged to kind of like send in their photos from that. As well as the annual Green Week, we also, that takes place in June. We also do a non-uniform day, which always takes place in the autumn. And we link this to, with assemblies, there's always a clear message and purpose. And so this year, for example, we partnered up with Just One Tree. So to wear non-uniform, students were encouraged to contribute £2. £1 went to Just One Tree, which had the global impact. So Just One Tree plant trees in areas where they'll make the biggest impact. So Madagascar, Mozambique, there's a number of places where they plant. So the students knew that they were making a global impact, and then the other £1 was for the local impact. So that was letting them know what sustainability projects are we currently running on site, and how that £1 is going to help them to improve biodiversity at Hitchin Boys School. And then the other thing I've done for raising community awareness is run a twilight session for staff. So the idea here is to basically inform staff really about what it is that we're doing, so that staff feel confident enough to kind of have sustainability chats, informed time, to embed that into the curriculum wherever appropriate. But the idea being that obviously if staff are talking about it, that it kind of, it's that snowball effect. Lots of people talking about sustainability is better than me just banging the drum as loud as I can. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yes, and another part of kind of getting the community involved, getting the students involved, is running trips. It's a big part of what I love about the role. So our sustainability conferences, so we've had trips out for all Key Stage 3, 4 and 5, where they get to be a part of the sustainability conferences. Students get to have a go at models projections, where they get to kind of be world leaders. So it's really nice for students to kind of think, kind of be part of adult life, as it were. But also it's a great place where we've picked up lots of different ideas for our own site as well at these conferences. Took out the Eco Committee to do, and others whoever was interested in bird watching trip. So we went to Paxton Pits, and we also saw a number of bee orchids actually near Baldock Services on the way back. And then just literally January of this year, we took students from a program which I'll talk about later, and some of my Eco Committee to Norfolk to see the seals, the pups that have been born on the beaches in Winterton. And then this summer we'll be doing a trip to Devon, where so we talk a lot about kind of rewilding. That's from Operation Future Hope. With the students, but I want them to see that on a large scale action. So we're going to take them to a site in Devon to see that, and also give them an opportunity to see sustainable mackerel fishing in action. So yeah, that'll be a really amazing experience. So yeah, I feel like our best ideas have come from letting students kind of experience sustainability, not just kind of learn about it in the classroom. Next slide, please. So yeah, I guess biodiversity, like I said, I've kind of touched upon before, is kind of the golden thread. It started with surveys to establish kind of baseline where we're starting out at. And then since then, we've done lots of habitat creation. So we've had a couple of trees go down in the storms, whereas previously tree surgeons would have taken that off-site. We are now putting all of those logs into our kind of woodland area and making log piles out of that. So yeah, nice that we're building habitat, but also mussels for the boys. We've been doing some dead hedging. We've put up lots of bird boxes. Again, this is about so a lot of the bird boxes I'll talk to the boys about. We put them obviously in the area where we think they're most likely to be successful, but we also put a number of boxes out in areas where perhaps we're less certain that we'll get birds in there, but it's about, okay, that's a visible, obvious thing that all students will walk past, and that will make them think, oh yeah, actually, you know what, I could put one up in my house. So it's understanding about, it's the spreading of the message. And we've also been putting in wildflowers. So we've got a little wildflower meadow, the front of our wooded area. We've had a bird feeding station, although after a recent Winter Watch episode, I'm now umming and ahhing about bird feeding stations because it's kind of mixed messages about disease spreading for birds. So yeah, that's one that we're thinking on. I've already touched upon the tree planting, but we've also done a lot of bulb planting this winter. So in all of our field margins now, we're leaving, where possible, because sometimes it impacts on a rugby pitch, but 3 meters of grass just to go long. Again, this is something that the Herts Wildlife Trust talked to us about, how basically long grassland is something which is needed in Hertfordshire. And so we're leaving the grass to go long, but also we're trying to introduce some bulbs in there to get kind of that colourful feel, but also increase biodiversity. Next slide, please. So yeah, inclusion is where I feel like perhaps our biggest point of difference is at Hitchin Boys School. So this is where we've really kind of focused in on how can sustainability and how can nature make a massive difference for these students who perhaps need it most. So I'm not responsible for the naming of any of these programs. They're my visions, but we have an English teacher in senior leadership who has the ideas of the names. But the Voyager program is for Year 9 students. So we've highlighted students. They were chosen either, perhaps they were racking up quite a number of behaviour points, or their SEN, so often ADHD, or those students who perhaps we just felt weren't yet quite a part of the community. They didn't have an obvious thing. Some students have music, drama, sports, but perhaps they just hadn't quite yet found their thing in Hitchin Boys. And so by introducing them to this program, basically it's 2 hours a week. They come and do outdoor education with me, and we work on sustainability projects, but it's also very much a mentorship kind of program. We talk about our emotions where we can, and sort of learn through nature wherever possible, really. And yeah, it's been a massive success. The boys have loved it. Behaviour points have gone down. They're all enjoying it, and they're asking to do it next year. So we've now introducing the Horizons pathway. So this is for year 10 and 11. So this is what we're hoping to introduce. It's not in place yet, but the King's Trust run a personal development and employability skills. So that's more building core skills, but we're going to do it through nature. And then for those students who are thinking more that perhaps nature, outdoors, agriculture could be a vocational kind of pathway for them, we are thinking of introducing the land-based studies. We actually had a visit from Ofsted in November, so full inspection, and we got really, really positive feedback for this kind of program. They loved the idea of it, and it was actually part of the big part of the reason why we scored a very top grade, exemplary, sector leading for our inclusion. So it was nice to, I guess, have that validation. But yeah, the aims of it is to teach students about nature, build relationships and monitoring and mentoring, and improve well-being and engagement in schools, so improve kind of attendance. So what we do, we work in the woodland area, but we also have an amazing kind of walled garden area. Unfortunately, that had a huge amount of, it'd basically been left just to go in disrepair. So we had a lot of box hedging, which had all had box blight, brambles. Yeah, it was just kind of unkept. which obviously can be great for nature, but we have enough brambles on site that we didn't feel too bad in removing that. So by removing it, we've now kind of created these beds. So in the spring and summertime, the boys are going to learn about sustainable food practices. So they're going to be able to grow their own fruits, veggies, flowers. So yeah, it's going to be a kind of a real amazing space for the boys. Yeah, so what was I going to say? No, yeah, I would say I guess if another school was to take anything kind of from what we do, I do feel like the biggest takeaway for another school would be if you can run one structured outdoor education program, that would be my biggest recommendation. It's my favorite part of the week now. It's 4 hours of the week that I teach, but it's definitely what I'm most passionate about, what I love. I know it's what makes the biggest difference for those students who do it. You know, it's small at the moment, but it's impactful, and we're scaling it up. You know, it doesn't have to be called Voyager, but all it needs is, I think, time to be intentional and leadership backing. We're very fortunate in that we had an old boy who wanted to give some money to fund what he felt like. You know, he felt, I guess, at his time that sometimes he felt a little bit lost in the community, and by having this, he knows that I guess it's providing students with that safe space, but that opportunity to contribute when perhaps they don't necessarily know kind of what that looks like. So yeah, I hope that you can kind of take from this that sustainability at Hitchin Boys isn't all about kind of carbon and biodiversity, even though that is a massively important part of it. For us, it's really for what does it look like for the students? How can the students benefit most? Because at the end of the day, as teachers, it's all about the student experience, and how can our wider community then also benefit from that. Yeah, I think if there's one thing I've learned, I guess, doing this, it's that the environmental work is most impactful when the students feel like it really is for them. So yeah, thank you very much for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Reese. So much to take in there, but what a glorious way to help boys acknowledge their feelings in a safe way and without judgment. I think it's how far-reaching nature really goes in something like this. That's, you know, it's beyond what it is that you see, but what it kind of encompasses as well. Really well done. I love it. My husband Daniel went to Hitchin Boys, and I think his only contact with nature was probably skidding along the grass on the rugby pitch. So
yeah, the boys still do that.
Yeah, I bet they do, 100%. But it's so lovely to see the changes that are happening there, and sort of like bringing these, you know, sort of opportunities to engage in conversation, talk about stuff, and bringing skills into it and learning new skills for the process. That's just marvelous. Thank you so much.
No worries.
I've got a couple of hands up now. I know that Councillor Graziano had his up first, then Councillor Strong. So Councillor Graziano, if we go with you, please.
Hi, Reese. Good evening. Fantastic bit of work that you're doing with the boys' school. I really commend it in its absoluteness, because when we were at school back in the day, we didn't have any of this stuff. You were taught by your parents, and the teachers that knew their biology or about the environment, you learn. The only concern I have is, Reese, is we have a real concern about kids, altruistic kids that don't give a damn. And I'll give you some examples. I've got some boys that travel from my village on the bus to your school, and they litter the footway. I've challenged them, and I get told, don't give a beep, beep, beep. And I challenge that, and I've brought it up with parish councils. It's important that I, parents, the school, manage this. How can we best keep doing this? Because we don't want to set an example that you're doing all this great stuff, but I've got 3 or 4 boys in a village that don't give a damn about the environment. And that concerns me, because when they're challenged, they think it's not their problem. So how do we manage that, and what does the school do? Because I know we've had a problem here locally about littering, getting on a bus, throwing a few chocolate bars. You know, you're doing great stuff there, and I don't want it undone by all this nonsense, because we need to live and breathe this. How do we manage those kids to behave themselves? Because it's really important. Do you know what I mean?
Point home there, thank you, Reese. Obviously, if you want to, come back on that, that's fine. But obviously, this is slightly more of a separate element to what you've presented tonight. But by all means, you can answer to that if you want to.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, yeah, for me, it's all about being that role model, showing the boys like what it is to be a kind of a global citizen. And like I touched upon in the PowerPoint, it's showing them that actually when they spend time in, I mean, studies show when you spend time in nature, you're more likely to protect it. Now, when you present it to them like that, that's not gonna hit home. So often it's about getting them outdoors, getting them and enjoying it, and then after the event being like, well, you know, like we had a great time there, didn't we? Don't you think it's really important that we protect this area? So again, that's part of what I'm doing is before I took over, that wooded area was just kind of like pretty much an out of bounds area. There was a nursery school that goes in there. But part of what I'm doing now is trying to get students on their break or lunch in there so they can kind of like be amongst it. It's just a big enough space that when you're in the middle of it, you can hear nothing else. You feel like you're in the middle of this massive woods. The songbirds are going nuts. And so for me, it's all about getting students into nature and then teaching them after. But yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, like litter is still a massive problem on our site. I've got a group of students who literally every week will litter pick. We've got a volunteer who litter picks pretty much like every day, and we still have a litter issue. You know, we do things with plastic-free schools, and again, in March we'll be doing some litter picking. But the problem is, yeah, there is a few who unfortunately ruin it for the many on occasion. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to deal with. Obviously, if we see it happening, we address it, we challenge it just like you do. But yeah, unfortunately, there's no obvious solution, but other than get them in nature, get the benefits, and then hope that they get in line, I guess.
Well, happy to come to your school and about littering, to help this. So let me know, as I'm an avid campaigner for mess and tragedy in fly tipping and littering. So if you need a bit of an outsider to come in, I'm your man. So
lovely. I love that. Thank you.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that, Joe. If you're Councillor Graziano, if you allow me a tiny, sorry, I just realised my mic was way down there. Allow me a tiny tangent on that. I think when it comes to something like this, and it's, as opinion as a mum of a teenage boy and who's worked with school kids as well, sometimes the worst thing in the world that can happen is you'll do something silly and then you'll get embarrassed about it when you're called out on it, and that is really rubbish. And I think sometimes as well, our attitude towards young people could be different. And I think a better approach or the approach like Reese has been doing with the discussing it, the learning about it, the educational elements of it. And if you were to maybe approach something differently, did you mean to drop that? Is that yours? Could you pick it up, please, mate? Thanks, that'd be wicked. Thank you so much. And like really that camaraderie kind of element to it as well. It gives them an out. Whereas if you do the, oi, don't litter, etc., it puts them on the spot. It's embarrassing, and the immediate reaction sometimes is to panic and then be aggressive and boisterous and things like that. And it's just something, and of course, when they're at that age as well, where that kind of knee-jerk reaction can be a thing. It's like a defensive thing. I think sometimes, as well as like their behavior needs to be acknowledged and it needs to be dealt with, but also our behavior and how we react to it and how we deal with it could be better as well. So I always try to do this slightly more camaraderie and element to it of sort of engaging with it. And then just sort of like, is that yours? Could you pick it up? Really, thank you so much, darling. Really appreciate it. And then see how that goes. And if they're still rude to you, then you contact the school and you complain. You give a description of the time they're on the bus, and then it's dealt with by the people who can deal with it there. So I think that's probably the best route. Anyway, thank you so much for that. Councillor Strong.
Yes, just a couple of things I wanted to raise. You mentioned you were looking for grant funding for your bike rack.
Yeah.
I would recommend get in touch with the the community services at North Herts, because they can know where there is quite a bit of funding. And it's a shame you're not as close to Luton Airport, because they do have lots of grants, but you're over the 5-year threshold. And we did have grants, which it closed unfortunately in September, October. So you must have just missed that one.
Yeah, I literally.
I don't know whether they've still got the money and all the money has been spent. Because you can always ask, because if somebody has been granted money and they haven't spent it, it's still sat there to be spent by the end of March. That was that one. And the other one is I wanted to ask you, have you got contacts with the community lottery, which is run by Paul D?
No.
That might be something you might be interested with your boys, because he runs just looking at allotments and growing all sort of good plants for the gardens and that. And again, I'm sure we can get you his details. You can Google him on online, Paul D.
Paul D was that?
D-E-E. He's a Hitchin guy. He's retired, but he runs particularly for things up on the allotments on Old Hale Way, and they do things. You can go and visit the allotments, see what they're doing, and get kids to get actively engaged and take part. Might be something you'd be interested in.
Amazing, yeah. We actually have
Forward-
a
sorry,
partnership as well with. Sorry, we have a partnership with Triangle Community Garden as well. So that's in Ransom's Rec, and they do a lot of work with adults with special educational needs. But yeah, again, we've had those in as well to help us with allotments. But I always think the more help, the better. So yeah, absolutely, I'll get in contact with Paul D. Thank you for that. Another thing actually was I remember you said about the Rotary Club having mature trees. That's definitely something that I would be interested in exploring.
Thank you.
It's
Just quickly, yeah,
it's
Paul
the
D is
Hitchin
very-
Tile House. I was going
Yeah.
Hitchin Tile House, and we're always planting trees around the place, and we look for places to plant trees.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be in touch with in need of a few, I think. Thank you.
Right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, just quickly, Paul, I know, having met him a few times, he will be very accommodating for something. He's always up for some sort of engagement, especially with young people around anything that's involved in for allotments, planting or otherwise. So yeah, and he's very knowledgeable. So yeah, if you were to get in touch, I'm sure you get a positive outcome. Any more? Councillor McDonald's just commented that we have a community garden orchard in Great Wymondley if you want to visit or bring any students. So look at that. The offers are flooding in.
Amazing. Thank
Right.
you.
Are there any more comments or questions? I can't see any more hands up. Okay. Right. Thank you so much, Reece. That's fantastic. Just going to give everyone quickly, we've had our public participation. And now we're moving to item 8, which is suggested items for future meetings. Now, we had some suggestions last time, which we have listed and started running through and considering. But has there been any other thoughts for items for future meetings that you would like to discuss? First up is Councillor Emma Fernandez.
Not like I'm keen or anything, and I can never find mute when I need, unmute when I need to. No, because I did. This came up. I've had a member of the public get in touch with me about this, and then it also came up in one of our local Labour group meetings. There was a government report out in January. It was now I found it somewhere, National Security Assessment of Global Biodiversity Loss and Ecosystem Collapse. I wondered if this was something that we could, I mean, it's obviously quite big, but our MP did flag it up as something that it has not necessarily had the coverage it should have had in the media, no doubt due to lots of various other things going on internationally, but something that perhaps we should consider because it will have implications and impacts here. The member of the public who got in touch with me was particularly concerned about food security and whether and what the level of planning was locally for, food security and food banks, I'm guessing, to provide for the population locally in the event of some kind of breakdown.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Yes, that has been brought up as well. So that is on our food security is on our list of possible subjects, I believe. Thank you. Yep, Daisy's nodding at me. I didn't hallucinate that. Super. Councillor Graziano.
Hi, Chair. Could we come back to address the insulation heating schemes available in North Herts? I know we've made some progress thanks to the updated program, but I think a lot of locals still are unaware of, you can get a free boiler if you're on means tested or under an income of 31,000. I think it went up, but it's a really good scheme to push. And I just think, can we just readdress it again, maybe as a topic, and just understand what the terms and conditions are, if you may. But it's a really good thing for people on low income or on benefits. I think it's really important, especially in today's economic uncertainty. Just something that's been flagged with me a few times.
Thank you, Councillor Graziano. I can see Daisy's furiously scribbling there. So marvellous. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Don't forget, you can email the Environment Panel email, which was put into the chat earlier this evening, if you have anything that comes up afterwards, because I know, in the shower later on tonight, we'll suddenly go, oh no, I should have said this. Well, there's your opportunity. You can send it in writing afterwards, and it'd be most welcome. I'm going to give everyone the opportunity to have a quick whiz through the chat. Oh, John, there's lots of comments in there. Thank you so much. If officers could have a quick look at that and get those noted, that would be really helpful. Thank you. If everyone wants to make note of the plethora of information, email addresses, and otherwise that is in the chat before our meeting comes to a close, I know that you will be glad you did. And if there's no other further comments, queries, or suggestions, I'm going to suggest this meeting comes to a close. The next meeting of the Cabinet Panel is the 1st of April, so it will be proper spring by then. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'd just like to say a big thank you to our members of our public who came along tonight, our presenters who gave such wonderful presentations tonight on the work they've done in their schools. It's very inspiring. I can already see lots of ideas flying around already of possible changes that could be implemented in other areas of North Herts. I'd like to thank our councillors panels for being here and your questions and queries, and other members of the public, and of course thank you to our officers who make all of this happen. So thank you very much everybody, and good night.
Speak now. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night everyone.
Good night.
Bye.